Hey guys, and welcome to Faewood. So now we're moving on to doing the beadwork part of this necklace. I've got these really cute little mini sequins that I got some time ago at a craft show, and I really like these and enjoy using them in jewelry, and I usually use a bead on top of them and it just gives it an interesting look. Now around my little mushrooms I wanted to do some grass and leaves and things. So what I'm doing is, it sort of looks like a little leaf really, and you know, you put on a certain number of seed beads, whatever number you want for how big you want that piece of grass to be, and then you go back through the second last seed bead that you put on. You then thread on 3 less beads than you started with, and sew through the first bead that you put on, and it creates this little pointed leaf shape, which it's just perfect for a little piece of grass. Now you could just do a fringe part here if you wanted to, so you know, string on a number of beads and a stop bead, and then go back through all of the beads aside from the stop bead. And that would be another way to do it. And I used 2 different colours just to make it look a bit more natural, like a teal colour and then a colour-lined green as well. Now this is some of my French wire, and this is the first time trying to attach some of this to the piece. And I held up a number of the different colours that I had and decided I really like the dark colour. I am trying to go for a dark fairy aesthetic, so very mysterious looking fairy, so I wanted really deep colours with this. And I'm just couching it on really. I have seen people snip them into little pieces and almost then creating a bugle bead out of them, and that would be another way to do it as well. So I'll probably play around with that, I think, as well. And then I've got a different type of French wire that's a thinner, smoother one that I might play with later, but I don't use it at the moment in the piece. Now I'm really going for a dark indigo colour to offset all of these lovely rich jewel tones. I really love jewel tone colours in things. It's something that I'm naturally drawn to, so I really enjoyed the colour palette of this necklace. And I went for the matte indigo colour because I just thought it looked really nice and didn't overtake. It was just this soft indigo blue that sat behind other things and let other things be the hero. So what I decided to do was to do some freeform beadwork around the tip of the kyanite piece that I have here. I wanted to make it almost like a bead cap, if you like, so that it looked like the crystal was growing out from the beadwork. So I've done just a lot of different beadwork around there, and I do go back into that beadwork in a moment and add to it. Now this shibori silk has raw edges. A lot of them I did do embroidery stitches over the top of, so technically it's all stitched right in, but there was a little bit of roughness still to some of these edges, and I did some seed beading over the top of that, which is typically what people seem to do with the shibori silk. Because of the rough edges, you just want to make sure that it has a nice finish off point there. And I am always a stickler for making sure things are finished off. I just can't seem to let myself be too loose with things like that. So although I have an organic style, I am a stickler for making sure everything is stitched as well as I can and finished off as well as I can. Otherwise it will bug me forever. So I'm using other beads as little stop stitch beads. These blue pearls that you see next to the crystal, I love. I really think they look lovely in this just a soft blue indigo. Soft in that I feel like pearls don't overtake things sometimes. So I'm always thinking about how something works in relation to the rest of the piece. You know, I'm obviously thinking of color palette when I create something, but I am also thinking of finish. So the shiny blue beads I just found took over too much from other things that I wanted to shine. I've got these beautiful crystals that I want to stand out. I've got this beautiful silk that I want to stand out. And if I start putting a lot of different shiny glass beads everywhere, then they'll start taking over as well. So everything starts competing with each other. So I just sort of felt like the pearls and these matte blue beads were just perfect. Now, I love Freeform beadwork, which is probably not a surprise given that I love organic types of shapes, and you know, it's just what I am drawn to. It's what speaks to me is the organic shapes. So you know, it's not even that I prefer doing those sort of stitches. It's just the way that I like the piece to look in the end. So I try to use whatever I feel the piece calls for. And if it called, in my mind, I mean, obviously everyone's style is going to be different, but for me, what it called for was some freeform beadwork. And I do find freeform really fun though, because it, you know, you can do whatever you like. A lot of freeform involves, well, often it's a lot of different stitches, and sometimes, like this part of beadwork, you couldn't even necessarily say it was a type of a stitch. There was a little bit of peyote technically, but because it's almost webbed, you know, you're just putting beads where they fit. You're piecing it together as it fits. You're not really doing a stitch as such. And which I know for some people that can be a bit overwhelming, because you know, you are then left to decide what stitches will fit and how many beads will fit in an area, and some people, for some people that just isn't how they like to bead, but I love it. So I did do a little bit of the dark blue stitching around the shibori, but for the most part I ended up deciding I wanted that matte dark blue to be the edge work for the necklace instead of anywhere else, so that it really brought your eye to the edge of the piece. It just grounded the piece a little bit, I felt. There's so much happening in this piece, and it's so organic and moving and colourful and all over the place, that you need some things to start really pulling those elements together. Otherwise it can be too much for your eye. So having a nice crisp edge of one type of bead was something that helped do that. Also, just having that that colour be the colour that unifies everything around the outside, I felt pulled everything together as well. So I used it around the crystals as well. I did sort of wonder whether I should have done a bezel around these crystals. I didn't have to for functionality's sake, because they have little claw settings that they sit in. But it is something that I kind of regret not doing, if I'm honest. But I'd sort of already done a bit and then thought, you know, I'm just going to go with it. I'm just going to move on. If I really, really didn't like it, I am definitely not one to shy away from ripping bits out of a piece if it doesn't work. It wasn't enough for me to feel the need to do that, so I just went with it. So then I did use some colour lined, can't even remember what colour this is actually. I think it's sapphire colour lined with a pink or a purple or something. But you can see it doesn't stand out too much. It just has a bit of contrast. Now, I did something a little bit different here. What a surprise, says Lauren, who does everything a little bit different. I did a brick stitch across this piece of shibori. Now, a lot of people make sure shibori sits flat on their base. They wouldn't leave an edge like this. But the raw edge is underneath. And, you know, I always like to push the envelope with things like this. I think one of the bonuses of perhaps being a bit of a misfit and not fitting in life in general is that you're not scared to push the envelope because, you know, I think there's a fear of fitting in, there's a fear of what should be done on a lot of things, and I do feel like that branches out into your art and craft as well. And I honestly do think it's something that pushes me to go beyond what people maybe think is the right way to do things or the done thing or whatever. You know, I think when you're not worried about what people think because if I'm honest, if you don't fit in anyway with things, you just do what you want anyway, because what difference does it make? So I like that I do feel that has some bearing on my art, which is why I bring it up. Now, it is size 11 beads that I'm using for that grass. I wanted something a bit finer, a bit daintier around there, and the rest of it is size 11. Aside from a couple of size 8 beads, which I did in that Freeform beadwork at the front of the necklace. I've got to say, I just love that occasionally when I move this necklace around, I'm getting those little sparkles of the crystals. And that's exactly what I was hoping for, is that these big crystals that are just in your face just have this beautiful magical sparkle that comes out through all of this dark, broody, deep jewel tone colours. Now with the shibori silk, I know that some people do like to do a lot of beadwork between the folds of the silk. I really only wanted to do that at the top of the necklace here because I did flatten it out a little bit more, and at the front of the necklace I just love the billowy shapes that it created, and I didn't want to do any beadwork on the center parts of any of that because I really like the shape that made, so I just did a little bit of beadwork at the base here in some of those folds. Now this piece is just lightly beaded really. It's got so many other elements in it, and I didn't want to cover everything up with the beadwork. I thought it would be a shame. It was more of a layering thing, so I did really debate whether I wanted more beadwork, you know, around the silk and everything. And I nearly did put some more beadwork, but I really liked having just those stitches, those embroidery stitches there instead. So I did decide to go back and do another row of my brick stitch across the shibori there. I just wanted to make sure that piece was held down and there was no risk of the raw edge flipping up and being seen. Again, I'm a stickler for finishing things off, so I had to do it. Well, that's it for this part of the necklace, guys. I hope you're enjoying seeing its progress. This is sort of half the necklace, really. I've got a whole other half to come and some other elements on this side as well. So plenty to see. Hit subscribe if you want to see more from me, and for the rest of you, I'll see you next time in Faewood. Bye, guys.